Hello, so today we're going to talk about what happens when we die if we're married and we're worried about our surviving spouse potentially maybe getting remarried to a new person after we've passed away, and then having the ability to leave all the assets to that new spouse. And if we're worried about that, we want to make sure that when we pass away, that our surviving spouse, if they do get remarried, doesn't leave it all to their new husband or wife. There are ways that we can do that in the trust. And so when one spouse dies, we can make it so that the trust then divides into multiple trusts, usually what we call an A, a B, and a C trust. We give them real names. The A trust is typically called a survivor's trust. The B trust is typically called a family trust or a decedent's trust. And then the C trust we usually refer to as the marital trust. And by using these A, B, C trusts, we can make it so that the surviving spouse has access, usually, to the money in these three trusts for their lifetime, so they can continue to live and use the money for the things that they need. But we make it so that the B and the C trust are irrevocable trusts. The A trust would be revocable by surviving spouse. So the money that goes in there, they can always change, alter, leave it to their new husband or wife if they wanted to. But the B and the C trust would be irrevocable trusts, so that the surviving spouse can't change that and leave that to their new spouse. So that does offer protection that way. What usually ends up going into these trusts is how it usually works is typically we take the total value of the estate when the first spouse dies. Let's say it's a $5 million estate. And then we'll put half of that typically in the A trust, which in this case would be $2.5 million. And then the remaining $2.5 million could go into a B trust or a C trust that would be irrevocable, so that in my situation, if I'm the first to die, that my 2.5, my half of the 5 million would go into an irrevocable trust for my wife that she could use for her lifetime, but she could never change the provisions of that to leave it to her new husband if she were to get remarried, because it's an irrevocable trust. And that way it's protecting my half of the assets. And we really want to do this typically if we have kids from previous marriages. So let's say this is my second marriage, my wife has kids from a previous marriage, I have kids from a previous marriage, and I'm worried that if I die first and my wife were to remarry after I die, that she might cut my kids out from a previous marriage and leave it all to her new husband, or maybe all to her kids instead of my kids. And so we make it so that when I die first, my half of the estate, my portion, whatever that is, would go into an irrevocable trust, either this B trust, or we could even put it all into a C trust. And then she can't change that or alter it, but she could have access to it for her needs. So that's one way we can protect the assets after one spouse dies and make it so that we don't have to worry about the surviving spouse getting remarried and leaving it all to their new spouse. Hope that helps. Thanks.